Hi there and welcome to this new video in which I want to show you how I build correctly this RPG game. Okay, as you can see it is quite simple, okay, but it still has like lots of things. It has different enemy types, for example this one that shoot things, and well we also had the ones with short range attacks with this kind of knife. So well, indeed it is quite complete, okay, even though it is quite simple. So well, I want to show you how to build this the right way, or well, all the the architecture things that I implemented to write this and create this as clean and as efficient as possible. And all these concepts, as they are fundamentals, they can be applied to Godot, Unity, any other game engine of choice. So first of all, something that you may want to do is to order your hierarchy inside of nodes or game objects, okay, nodes if you are in Godot. So well, for example, I have everything like ordered correctly. This just allows me to only see the things that I want. And for example, this scene transition manager, if I wanted to put inside of the managers, I just receive a warning and the game doesn't work correctly because this is a singleton, okay, and it sets on don't destroy on load. But basically the functionality doesn't work correctly if I put it nested inside of a game object, so it must be completely outside of any other game object. That's the reason why I put it right over there. But if not, if possible, any other game object is put directly inside of a parent. This helps me keep the hierarchy perfectly organized. Now, there are also lots of behaviors that are shared between the enemies and the player. So let me actually address this here. So what I call a player and enemies, basically I call them character, okay? So they do have some, as I mentioned, similar behaviors. So they both collide, they both flip, they both have health, they both move. And well, I also have this other thing that I will show you in a second, maybe. So what happens, for example, is that well, both of them I want to detect collisions with the trigger, okay. So I don't really have to do like many things. I just attach this script to the characters themselves, to the player and the enemy, and the logic works itself. But now, for example, in the character flip, okay, there are different behaviors, because what happens is that this kind of flipping, oh I'm sorry, this kind of flipping actually meant that well, the enemy, okay, is going to flip depending on the player position. If the player is in a bigger X position than the player's position, for example like this, it should flip basically. Okay, so it would do something like, oops, sorry, like this, okay, basically. Okay, and if it is smaller, okay, as in this case, it should be like this. But in the player, this is quite similar, but it depends on the mouse itself, okay. So let's see this once again, maybe because maybe it is a little bit confusing. So as you can see, the player flips, or actually the player, sorry, doesn't flip at all. But what does flip is the player weapons themselves, okay, to be able to attack from here and to also attack from here. So how this is done is as well, there are some, this is the base class, okay, character flip, and then in enemy flip this class is inherited, and this is also inherited in the player movement, I think it is, yes, or no, sorry, we're here in the player weapons container, okay. So that this is just made a little bit more generic. For example, the player weapons container over here, when the character wants to flip, what I just do is to flip the scale Y, okay. Whereas, for example, when I want to flip in the enemy, okay, so enemy flip, I want to flip the scale X, okay. So here you can see how everything is made generic, and in case you want to dive a little bit deeper into how this exactly works, well, here you can see there are like hundreds of lines of code, so I'm not going to explain them all. But the key thing is that I just have one main script, character flip, that has the usual, like the behavior that you may want, okay. And from there, by just inheriting this and by overriding some abstract functions, okay, by overriding these two abstract functions, okay, that are both implemented in player weapons container. As you can see, they are overridden, and the same thing in the enemies, okay? And like that, the behavior is generic basically. So this is a principle that is quite complicated to use at first, but it can really save you lots of time. And the same thing with, for example, the character movement. So in this case, what I have is once again a character movement based class in which I get the rigid body, and on the only thing that changes actually is this direction variable, okay? That I basically created here an abstract method. So what abstract does is that when I inherit from this class in enemy movement, okay, this basically allows me to implement this function and to override this functionality. In this case, direction, I set it to basically move towards the player, okay? Whereas in the player movement, once again, it inherits from character movement, and when I override this set direction, I just make it equal to a new vector 3 taking into account the movement input. So well, here you can see how once again I am saving lots of code and I'm making things as clean as possible. So in order to be able to do this, you have to learn about inheritance, about abstract classes, okay? So a concept that is simple, but then applying it to reality could be a little bit more complicated. And then also, of course, as you can see, every single behavior that the player or enemy has, it is separated into its own script. I don't have like an enemy script and everything is there. No, I have enemy sprite changer, enemy movement, enemy animation, time randomizer, and everything like that. Now, also, I've used a lot of scriptable objects. One for the enemy themselves, because what happens is that, as I mentioned, I have two different enemy types. These ones that are, I call them base enemies, and these ones that are shooter enemies. So for instance, they have different stopping distances. So the base enemy like will go quite close to the player, something like that, whereas the shooter will have like a bigger distance because it will shoot at the player. And that is set, or here scriptable objects, enemies. Base enemy has a stopping distance of 1.4 and the shooter a 0.2, and they also have like different sprites. For example, this is the shooter enemy, so it has these two sprites and these two weapons that are set randomly, and the other the other enemy is basically the same thing. In this case, I have much more enemies, many enemies, and well, the same thing with the weapons themselves. So this once again allow you to keep everything like expandable, easy to use, etc. And connected to this, in terms of prefabs, what I have is a base, like the root enemy prefab, and here two prefab variants, okay, of this. So this is the base enemy. It has every single type of enemy, as well as the hellfire canvas and that kind of shadow that maybe it is a little bit complicated to see right there. So basically with the prefab variants, I only leave the type of enemy that I want. So I deleted here, for example, the shooter enemy, and I just left the base enemy. And well, the same thing with the shooter enemy. Not only that, but also here, these different scripts require to read some information from the enemy data. For example, enemy movement may need to look for the stopping distance, I believe this is looking at. Yes, exactly, stopping distance. And then this one, sprite changer, this is going to be looking for the enemy sprites and weapon sprites. So well, this is all assigned as it should, as you can see. So enemy movement, shooter enemy, because we are on the shooter enemy, whereas if we go to the base enemy, we're going to be seeing all this, but base enemy, okay? And then, for example, here also in prefabs, we can see the different weapons to basically be able to just have everything like nice and organized, basically. Also, every single animation is perfectly ordered. So I have here player, and how I like to name my stuff is basically to have everything in their own folder, and I create an animator controller with the name of the game object, for example player, and I just have the different names over there, okay? So I may have multiple idle animations maybe. For example, here I have one idle of the state canvas and one idle of the player, but they can still be referenced quite easily. So I don't have to name my animations player idle, player walk down, player walk left, player walk up, enemy base enemy attack, or something like that. So it's much easier to name these things. And well, something quite similar applies to scripts, okay? They are all completely ordered. Here they do start, for example, in the enemy, they always start with enemy something, enemy that, player the same thing, but well. And by the way, I have here the different interfaces. So this is also another concept that really helped me build like correctly an RPG game. And it's also quite useful actually for the collision detection. Because for example I have this destroyable interface, okay, and this interface is actually implemented in the projectile destroyer script. This is a script that I attach directly to the projectile, implement this interface, so it has this which it was the name, yes, destroy object method, okay, in which I basically do what I need to do in order to destroy the object. I basically don't allow to move it anymore. I enable this flag, I disable the trail, and I play a corresponding animation. So then directly, what I do is, for example, in this character collision, after doing some logic, I detect if the character, which means the player or the enemy, is colliding with an object that does have these components, okay, I destroy the object. Because what happens is that, for example, if the player collides with the base enemy, okay, with the base knife, okay, I don't want to destroy that knife, of course. So this is something that is optional. Quite similar is the behavior with the other interfaces, okay, to implement optional logic. Or for example, this eye damaging. So I only want to take the collisions with objects that have this interface because they can deal damage. If I collide with the tile map, with the obstacles, I don't want to damage myself. And I had another interface that, let me quickly explain how I use it. I had this death basically, so let me remember why I use this interface, because too much data for me. Yes, basically for enemies or for characters that can die basically. So this was implemented in both enemy death and player death. So basically what would happen when these characters die? If the enemy dies, well, first of all, I check the enemy's number. If there are no more enemies left, the player has won. And in the player, if it dies, the only thing that I want to make sure is that the crosshair of is set to false, and I just want to call the corresponding enemy's win, and I just want to disable the object, okay? So also you can see different behaviors depending on what happened. And then in order to use this, in the character collisions, I get the component, because remember this character collision is attached to the player and the enemy. And then in the collision code over here, I just call the corresponding function, okay? So these were the main things that actually helped me build a well-structured RPG, inheritance, abstract classes and abstract functions, interfaces, and also having a clear project structure, also having good logic with scriptable objects, as well as prefabs and nested prefabs. And if you, of course, I am not able to explain all this right here. That's why this course is actually part of a course that this game is part of a course that I'm going to be releasing within the next few weeks. So whenever the course is ready, I'm going to be publishing it over here in the channel, in a video, in a community post, everywhere, because as you can see, there are lots of concepts that I'm sure will help you, okay? And these are concepts that you can easily transfer to Godot, to every other single game engine, because all of them do have something similar, okay? If there isn't like something like completely similar to an interface in Godot, I'm sure there is some way to do something similar. So make sure you stay tuned, and for that, subscribe for the channel. See you in the next one, and bye bye.